and welcome to Stretford Paddock on Thursday, the 16th of April 2020. How's everyone doing at home? Let me know how you're doing at home. And today we've got some, well, quite frankly, quite big news. This is coming out of Eurosport. This is a journalist called, what's this guy's name again? Again, not really heard of him until Manu Lonjon, his name is, coming out of Eurosport France, and he is saying that Manchester United are finalising the arrival of Jack Grealish. Now, this goes along with a few other reports in the last day or so that United are still in for Grealish, that United are still pressing ahead with this transfer. So it seems as though some kind of leak or some kind of briefing or something may have happened in regards to Grealish. Again, this is on ESPN as well. Rob Dawson saying that his sources are also saying that we are pressing ahead with our pursuit for Jack Grealish despite the Aston Villa midfielder's coronavirus lockdown break. And Rob Dawson is someone who has proven himself to be somewhat more reliable, somewhat of a better face in terms of giving out this transfer news, of having sources, of providing deals and details of deals that are more reliable and actually have a little bit of weight behind them. So it does seem as though, again, Eurosport, not necessarily the most highly rated publication, but again, Manu Lonjon, verified on Twitter, is a reporter for them, and he is saying that United are finalising the deal of Aston Villa star Jack Grealish. Again, there was a question this last week. I think it was now, wasn't it? I can't remember. How long ago did he crash his car? Was that last week? Was that 2 weeks ago? Was that like Monday? I don't know. But there were questions over his potential future move to United, which we know, and like we said, can confirm that United are interested in Jack Grealish. Let's get this up on there. That United are interested in Jack Grealish. We know that for certain. And I think there were questions that were raised about that, as you would expect when someone he's crashed his car when he's meant to be staying in for lockdown. There were rumours that he'd been drinking as well. I don't think that was ever proven, or that was an accusation that sort of fell by the wayside due to a lack of any real evidence that was the case. And as the camera won't focus in on me there, will it? Go on, lad. There we go. And there were a lot of people saying, he shouldn't sign for United. He's not the right type of character for United. Solskjaer's ruled out a move for him after what's happened, but it looks as though we're seeing now this sort of second wave, or this third wave even potentially, of journalists and reporters coming out saying, actually this is happening, and United are still pushing ahead with this transfer. A lot of people seem to think that this one is dependent on Paul Pogba leaving. Let me know in the comments whether you think Jack Grealish coming in is a good thing. Do you think that the attitude we've seen from him, and you know what, it's not just this, is it? Obviously, I think this is the most recent one, but there have been reports in the past of him going out, fighting and smoking and all this sort of stuff. This way, you kind of think, how dependent, how professional is this guy? I think that's been one of the criticisms that's been levelled at him down the years. But is a good player. Do you think that he's the sort of player United need? We put a video out the other day talking about Maddison versus Grealish, and there were a lot of people. A lot of people like Jack Grealish, but there were plenty of people who thought that maybe his time has sort of been and gone almost. I know he's only 24 years old, but he's this character that sort of is more of a. There's two ways of looking at it. One way is that he's kind of a throwback to these characters like Zlatan. Obviously, he's not got the world sort of stage as Zlatan, or like Cantona style, or even on a smaller scale, someone like I'm Raphael or someone like that, where you think, this guy's he's a nice guy, but he's a bit of a twat. Or Herrera, that kind of player, where obviously he's not going to live up to Cantona, is he? But this sort of player that has a swagger to him, that has this sort of darker side to them, where you think, I'm not really sure what they're going to do, but usually it's pretty good. And sometimes it's not, and that's the problem with these sorts of players. And some people think he's more of that kind of style, but there are other people who kind of think, it's not the good side of those sort of players. It's more, Lukaku or Di Maria or, Memphis, where you think, is he a bit flash? He's going to come in, think it's all about him. When it doesn't work, he's going to leave and he's going to upset people. Maybe it's that kind of thing, rather than this is a person with a bit of an ego, a bit of a strut, a bit of arrogance, and it's the good side of those things. Maybe it's the bad side. Kamucha says, all right, everyone, how's everyone hanging this morning? Doing well? Everyone safe? Staying safe? Yeah, I'm staying safe. I'm doing all right. Someone says, he's talking rubbish. We don't know if Pogba's going yet. Our number one target is Sancho, and if Villa go down, he'll be cheaper. I don't believe this story at all. Well, I think if Villa go down, he'll be cheaper. You seem to think that United are interested in Grealish. I think also what you need to remember is there are multiple, when they say the deal has been finalised, and I agree with you that you can never be certain with these things. But when someone says a deal has been finalised, that there's multiple deals and there are multiple finalisations that need to happen. So there is, firstly, you contact either the club, or you get word from the club that it's okay to contact the player, or you contact the agent. And then what often happens is a deal is sort of agreed in principle for the player. So it'll be stuff like, right, personal terms, they get that agreed. So yeah, would 250 grand a week suit you? Yeah, okay, all right, good. And would this suit your 5-year contract? Yeah, okay. So they kind of get that sort of stuff, because that's why often it'll be like, we have not accepted a deal for Paul Pogba. The next day is at Man United. We have not, no deal has been made for Romelu Lukaku. The next day is at Man United. And that can often be because the last part of the deal to be done sometimes is, okay, we know the player is ready, is happy with this deal. We've got word from his agent, we've got word from his people that this contract is enough for him to play for us. Now we go to the club and say, the player wants to join, that's all sorted, here's the 60 million you asked for, finalise the deal, put the signature on, and he's done. So sometimes the finalising of the deal might be our contract with him. Might be, okay, Jack, you're going to come in, we're going to give you 75 grand a week, which is, nearly 3 times what you're on now. Then, it's going to be a 5-year deal, that sort of thing. We'll get all that. Here's your bonuses, here's all this sort of stuff. And then you go to the club at the end and say, here's, we've already arranged the deal with him, here's the money. It doesn't always work like that, but it doesn't always go, right, hello, Aston Villa, here's all the stuff we want for Jack Grealish, is it a yes or a no? Deals are done differently. As we know, agents do a lot of the deals on behalf of the player in terms of the contract side of things. And then you go to the club to give, to pay them the money to sort of finalise the sort of transfer deal side of things. But getting the player on side is, 70% of the battle, because if they don't want to play for you, they won't join you. Obviously, a club can sell a player against their will, but I think generally convincing the player to sign, getting the details of what the player wants, the contracts, that sort of thing, goes a long way when these deals are sort of happening. And that's why you see, terms agreed, that's often player terms, not club terms. So, that side of things could well be finalised. We could have said to Jack Grealish, here's the money, here's what we're going to give you, here's the sort of deal you're going to be on. And he goes, yeah, okay, that sounds great, I'll let my agent deal with that. And then you sort that out, and then you go to the club and finish off the sort of the 60 million side of things, which could change depending on whether they get relegated or not. Bruno has enough character for the midfield. Get bloody better around him. I assume you mean better players, yeah. I wonder how much one time the club get with a player before buying. Yeah, to really sit down to know, to find out about their attitude and personality. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because you look at like a job interview, and basically you're hiring someone. You don't get to see their character particularly. I'm sure you'd hear rumours if someone's a real dickhead. You probably will have heard rumours within football. You're probably asking agents, you're asking friends. If I was Man United and I was going to be making a signing that cost 80 million, I would be asking everyone who's played with at Villa, or everyone who used to play with him at Villa, all the people who coached him, you emailing them, you ringing them, what's Jack like, what's his personality like? That's what I would be doing, and I'm sure they must be doing stuff like that. You want to get a grip of that, because often, you do a job interview with someone, you sort of gauging their personality as much as anything. Well, basically, with footballers, they tend to be hired on their portfolio, which is how well they've done in games. So some people are really good at their job, great portfolio. Look at this, look at all this work they've done, look at all the goals he's scored, and then you get him in, dickhead, everyone hates him, and then you want to get rid of him, but you can't because you just paid 60 million for him. So yeah, I wonder that as well, how much finding out about someone's character comes into things, and I'm sure, especially for someone like United, where United know that they get more criticism than any other club. If Jack Grealish comes in and is a twat and falls out with, it's one thing crashing your car. That's one thing because, that's a legal matter. We deal with that as a club. We've docked in these many weeks' wages. That's sort of under the bridge. As long as you don't hurt anyone, that's kind of fine. It's not fine, but you know what I mean. The problem is if he comes in, he's doing that stuff off the pitch, and everyone in the dressing room thinks he's a dickhead, then you have problems because you can't brush that under the carpet, you can't laugh that off. If he's falling out with people, if he hasn't got any friends in the dressing room, if it, that sort of thing, that's where problems start to happen when you get these divisions in dressing rooms. You get these problems where this group doesn't talk to that group, this group doesn't want to pass to that person falls out with this person goes in too hard in challenges on this person. And I think you can get problems there. And I think one thing that Solskjaer has done, maybe the best thing he's done alongside his recruitment, is because there are always going to be problems, there are always going to be people that don't like each other, people that don't get on, people that have got rivalries, but being able to sort of mask that and put an outward face of a club that are happy, that's as good a problem solving almost as having people that actually are happy, because that's pretty much impossible, really. Shouldn't United be signing a defensive playmaker, someone like Ruben Neves? I don't necessarily know Ruben Neves specifically, but I personally think we are lacking a sort of a holding defensive midfielder, especially if we keep Paul Pogba. The thing is, if Pogba leaves, I think we need to replace him with a creative style player. I think if he stays, and you've got the potential of him playing alongside Bruno, I think the only sort of out-and-out defensive midfielder we have is Matic. And I wouldn't trust him to play 40 games a season in behind those two. And I think, I don't know if Fred can do it by himself, because we've just not seen him do it. Fred has always been part of a two-man pivot. Same with Scott McTominay. So Matic is the only one who has proven throughout his career to be able to be the single holding midfielder. And I think, we don't really have many of them in the under-18s either. We've got James Garner and Dylan Levitt, who again almost always play together. And when they don't, they're not necessarily the most defensive style players. But then again, we did have Michael Carrick for years playing as a single pivot pretty much, and he's not a tackler, he's not a marauding destroyer, he's got maybe the best positioning I've ever seen, certainly on a United midfielder. His ability to be in between the man with the ball and the person he wanted to pass it to cut out passing lanes, is the best I've ever seen. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone that goes around smashing into tackles like Wilfred Ndidi. Sometimes it could be someone maybe like Neves, like you're saying there, or even maybe McTominay or Fred could do that job. We just haven't had a chance to see yet. Someone says Sal all day every day. Yeah, potentially. Saw Bruno and this guy's passion and determination, everything, my midfielder. Yeah, the video, I don't know if anyone saw it, if everyone saw it, so I'm sure some people did. The video on Man United's Instagram yesterday of Bruno Fernandes just talking us through that City goal, the chip to Martial. Love that. Love hearing that. And it seems as though everyone was like, when he puts his hand up, that's the signal. I reckon he just saw him running and chipped it. It sounds like he was it was a planned routine, but I don't think it was down to the precise planning of like, I put my hand up, you run, I chip it. It sounded like I saw Martial running, chipped the ball to him, and he smacked it in. Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's. Where would a Joe go if a Joe could go somewhere? I'd go to the pub probably. That'd be great, wouldn't it? Grealish is absolutely a nice player and will add creativity to the team. If possible, United should sign him, Jesus Corona, James Maddison, and Sancho. Wow. That's part of being great, meeting City and Liverpool. I don't know who Jesus Corona is, but it sounds like bad name at this time of year, innit? Maybe scrap him. Camucho there. Everyone, go sign up for Stretford Paddock on YouTube. Support the lads during this hard time if you have the spare cash. Yes, we are offering memberships on Stretford Paddock. If you would like to join, click the little join button and select what type of membership you would like. Camucho, the first Paddock exclusive podcast for members will be going out this evening. So if anyone wants to get that, if you want to get your questions in as well, do that on Twitter. And we'll be answering some of your questions on the first members-only podcast going out this evening. You won't miss anything. It's all extra content for those of you who want it. It's not, we're not taking anything off Stretford Paddock. Don't you worry about that. Who's your CDM of choice, Joe? I mean, in terms of, I always think proven Premier League quality is always a good thing. And I think indeed he's the best about at the moment. But what is he, 23 years old? People forget how young he is. 23, I think. And he's one of the best tacklers in the league, and he's playing at Leicester, who are overachieving and who have money, so they don't need to sell him. So he'd probably be 80, 100 million. So that worries me a little bit, but I think he would be, a great addition to United's midfield. Anyway, let's move on to our second story then. the continued, someone mentioned this before, the continued pursuit or the continued interest and reporting of the pursuit of Deo Upamecano. And this is coming from James Cooper. I accidentally clicked end stream there. Press not yet. Jesus, that was close. James Cooper, who again, friend of Stretford Paddock. If you didn't see that, we got an interview with James Cooper from Sky Sports. You know him, stood outside Old Trafford on transfers with Jay. Go and check that out because that's a really interesting video. And like I said, friend of the show, I get to say that now. And this is yesterday in Sky Sports, and he's saying that James Cooper says that Upamecano is on the list. A new centre-back remains a priority target for Manchester United, and Deo Upamecano is certainly on the list of options with the club's policy, like many others, to establish a first-choice 3 or 4 alternatives. Establish a first choice with 3 or 4 alternatives. What I don't know is how high Upamecano is on that list. What I can say is that Victor Lindelof looks to have established a real partnership with Harry Maguire, but needs competition for his place alongside the club's captain. Eric Bailly hasn't proved himself to be a consistent threat because of injury, and the same can be said of Axel Tuanzebe this season, with Chris Smalling and Phil Jones look to be off Solskjaer's radar too. So this looks like an area of the pitch that United will aim to strengthen. Now, here's an interesting thing. First of all, how weird is it down the years since, sort of 2011, 2012, when Rio and Vidic particularly started getting a bit injury prone. How many injury prone centre-backs have we had? You would think it would be the position that gets injured the least. I think it's probably the least running on the pitch, other than goalkeeper, maybe a striker's, but they're at least making runs in behind constantly. It's some of the least running on the pitch. I know it's a bit more physical, but I'm surprised United have had so many injuries. And again, we've got Axel Tuanzebe, who played a full season for Villa, pretty much, comes back to United, has been injured for most of the season. Eric Bailly, who has been injured for a lot of his career at Manchester United. But it's nice just to have Lindelof and Maguire, who don't get injured all the time. 41 games Harry Maguire's played this season. I don't know for Lindelof, but we've only played about 45, and Harry Maguire's played almost all of them. So it's strange that there are just getting players in that position that aren't consistently ruled out through injury is almost half the battle, really, which seems ridiculous. But this Upamecano thing, I think, again, James Cooper, friend of the show, I'm going to say it every time, friend of the show, James Cooper, there saying that he's not sure where on the list Upamecano is. He just knows again, and I'm sure, like I said, he's a reliable journalist from Sky Sports. I'm sure he has heard from either official sources or very good sources that this guy is on the radar. 21 years old, plays for RB Leipzig. I'm sure a lot of you will know him from like FIFA and Football Manager and stuff, because he's one of those up-and-coming sort of centre-back wonder kids. But he looks, fast, strong, kind of, that kind of style player. Again, I think the injuries is probably a concern, not necessarily for him, but I just think it's something that has to be taken into account with all centre-backs, because seemingly it's a position that gets injured all the time. Virgil van Dijk never gets injured. Yeah, Upamecano is a great centre-back, but I don't think we need another centre-back as another position like right wing or CDM is needed more. I don't think we're going to be getting him at the expense of, for instance, Jadon Sancho or a right winger. I think, we saw last summer, we got a centre-back for a huge fee and 80 million in Harry Maguire. We got a right-back for another 50 million, which, is nothing to be sniffed at in terms of right-back money, especially for a 21-year-old who's only played one season. Obviously, it turned out to be a great signing. Wan-Bissaka's been, one of our best players this season. But I think if we did pay 100, 105, 110 million for Jadon Sancho, I think there would still be some money available for a midfielder and then potentially a centre-back. If we could get 100 million for Sancho, 50, 60 million for Grealish, 40, 50 million for Upamecano, that's 200 million, which is a lot of money. I ain't got it. I ain't got 200 million. I think I've only got about 160 million. But I think that's not, completely ridiculous. We might get 10 million for Smalling, a few million for Phil Jones. If you can get Sancho off the books, that's probably another 10 million in wages over the season. So, you've saved yourself sort of 30, 40 million there. And that's before any others, Pereira potentially, Lingard potentially, even someone who might surprise you. And Paul Pogba, of course, is always the toss of a coin. So I think it's not unlikely or it's not impossible that we could sign 3 players all at 50 million plus. But yeah, like I said, I think we do have to prioritise potentially other positions If Pogba stays, then we need a proper CDM to screen the back four behind him and Bruno. Who's your realistic choice? Like, Ndidi is unrealistic. If Ndidi is unrealistic, I don't know, because, if United, if it's unreal, I'm not saying that we would sign him, but if it's unrealistic that we can get, a player from Leicester, then what is realistic? Does it have to be someone who's, we've got Maguire from Leicester, who's their best centre back last season. I don't think it's completely unrealistic to get Ndidi. Again, I'm just thinking of people who were linked to. I'm not really. I don't know. I think I like Premier League proven players, especially in midfield positions, because goal scorers are one thing. They can come in and you get them in those same positions that they've been used to the whole career, and they'll still put the ball in the back of the net. But I think midfielders, you have to have a certain speed to. We saw with Fred especially how much he had to speed up his game to work in the Premier League. He was getting dispossessed a lot. He was sloppy passes, taking too many touches on the ball. And if you're not used to the speed of the Premier League and you come into a midfield, especially in a position like CDM where you're relied upon to do those sort of last things before the defence is getting involved, and you make some mistakes to start with, all of a sudden your career's in doubt before you've even had a chance to improve. Dennis Zakaria is one that we've been linked with a lot. I think he could be good, but again, I've not seen that much of him, just from what I hear of him, that he's supposed to be good. Cam Waters says, Joe, how fast can you run 5 kilometres? What's the fastest I've ever run 5 kilometres? I don't know, 6 minutes. Playing for a club that has no pressure to win and then moving to United can kill young players. Would rather give Mengi and Axel the chance to develop and not waste money on him. Yeah, the thing with Mengi is he's only 18, so even in an ideal world, how young do defenders really come through? 20 at the youngest. Generally, centre backs, you're looking at 21, 22, 23, and that's 5 years away for Ted and Mengi. So even if he's this excellent, and he looks to be excellent centre back, you've still got three years at least before he's probably going to come through. You just don't see centre-backs playing for top clubs at the age of 20, except, like I said, I think yesterday, Rafael Varane is one exception to that. But even, look at Gerard Piqué, one of the most decorated and best centre defenders, centre-backs of recent history. When he was 18, 19, 20 at United, he never looked quite like he was up to it. He never quite had developed yet. And you look what he became. He won everything, played 500 or so games for the best team ever, or one of the best teams ever. You never would have predicted that from the player we saw. So you've got to give centre-backs time to develop, I think. Sancho, Saul, Grealish and Igalo would be a dream summer. Yeah, it would. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Premier League proven is one of the most annoying phrases in football fandom, always used to justify overpriced mediocrity. I take your point, but we have. I think anyone would agree, surely, that we commonly see players come from other leagues where they've done very well and never quite do it in England. I can think of 4 or 5 examples just from United. Memphis Depay's one, scored loads of goals before he came to United. Henrik Mkhitaryan's another one. Bastian Schweinsteiger's another one. There's a lot of players, but then again, it can go the other way. You get players from within England, and they don't always work. Schneiderlin's one that didn't work, but I think it's playing in a league and then moving to another club in that same league. You are slightly more guaranteed of what you're going to get, and I think that's not too controversial to say, really, is it? It's not, is it? That's the case anywhere. If you're a chef working in one kitchen, and it's all laid up, all set up for you, the layout, and then you go to another kitchen, you're asking people where the fridge is for the first 2 weeks, and you might, oh, actually, I know where the countertops are, I know where the surfaces are, I know where the pot wash is, I know where all this stuff is, but to start with, you're asking people what to do. Oh, bloody hell, I didn't expect that. I didn't know that the waiters came in through this door. I've almost knocked 2 people over. And I think just knowing your surroundings, knowing the speed of the game, knowing what type of players play like what. You might have never seen, not now, but so much, but in the mid-2000s, if you'd never seen Stoke play, and then all of a sudden they've got a throw in 40 yards out, and you're stood in your own 6-yard box because Rory Delap's about to throw it into the top corner. We didn't have that in Germany. So I think, just not necessarily that the Premier League is any better than any other league, but just knowing what to expect from any situation in life gives you an advantage, surely. Anyway, that's going to be all from me. We're going to be back later for a podcast. We're going to have Jay from Full Time Devils on there. And like I said, tonight, probably about 8 o'clock, we're going to be releasing the first members-only podcast. So be sure to check that in the community tab on the members list. You'll see it come in your sub box. I think they should still come in your sub box. I'm not actually quite sure how that works because we're new to this as well, but you'll get an alert. We're going to post that in the community tab for all the new members to get that podcast. So be sure to tune in for that if you're a member. Thank you very much for everyone joining me from home. Will says, cheers from Japan, vodka and Stretford Paddock time. Japan is ahead, isn't it, by about 6 hours. So hopefully it's about 5 o'clock at least. Because if you're on the vodkas at 11:30 in the morning, there's some issues there. There's some issues. Joe McTominay can cut it as a top 4 CDM. I hope so. But we've just not seen him have the chance to do it by himself yet. But anyway, United could be making big moves with player values dropping massively. Yeah, I know. I like reading the comments. I need to go though. Gareth Blades, final comment: hitting the ground running or end up going backwards and being sold. Being Premier League proven at least allows you to have an understanding of the game on day one and gives you the chance to get games under your belt. Yeah, we've seen it before. It doesn't always happen, but we've seen it before where people come in. If your first 2 months are bad, sometimes you're sold at the end of the season. You know, it's not always the case of a bit of luck to start with, a bit of fortune, a good tackle here, or an early couple of goals for a striker or something for a new signing. That can set you up for the rest of the season. We know how much football's about confidence. Look at the Leicester team, win the league, 6 months later they're in the relegation zone, or 2 months later they're in the relegation zone. So football is so much about confidence, and I think getting a good start is just that bit more likely if you're used to the league. Right, that's going to be all from me. Like I said, we'll be back this afternoon at 4 o'clock for a live podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. Will Japan, final comment. We're 8 hours ahead, mate. 7:30 p.m. time here. Perfect. Have a great Thursday, everyone. Stay indoors. Stay safe. Watch Stretford Paddock. We'll see you next time.